I assure the people of Sokoto and indeed Nigerians that the Nigerian Air Force will work very, very closely with all security agencies in Sokoto, Zamfara, and other parts of the country where we are conducting operations in order to ensure that the territorial integrity of Nigeria is not undermined by any individual or group of individuals. We'll also work round the clock, strategize and re-strategize to ensure that Nigerians are secured.
That's where we're keeping our focus this morning as we look at the issues surrounding the killings and repeated attacks in Zamfara State. We're now being joined from our Abuja studios by a security consultant, Mr. Ayo Akonji. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, as well as Colonel Bala Mende, retired, a security consultant as well. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Let me begin with you, Mr. Akonji. The situation in Zamfara, can it be stopped to start with?
Of course it can be stopped. Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians. You could listen to what the Chief of SR was just saying right now in Sokoto. Clearly, the government and the military are working towards finding lasting solutions to this crisis. And they are coming up with different operations to see how this whole bandits can be neutralized. I think we have like 3 operations ongoing right now in Zamfara. You have Operation Sharon Daji as one. You have Harbin Kunama, which the president came around, therefore you see him wearing the military fatigue. And then you have another special operations by the Air Force, Air Task Force, which is Operation Harbin Kunama. So this whole operation has actually shown that the armed forces and the security services are actually ready to see how they can nip this crisis in the bud. But beyond just them, we need a cooperation of the stakeholders in Zamfara also too, from the governor to the traditional institution to those that actually stated to share the rightful intelligence. 3 days ago, the Air Force struck a compound that had the bandits there. That's where they were cooperating from to go and hit people. So they had intelligence, and then the Alpha Jet, had intelligence, surveillance reconnaissance. They went to establish that the bandits were actually there, and they went and neutralized everybody that was there. So there is a coherent and deliberate effort to nip this crisis in the bud. And I can tell you, and I can assure Nigerians that by the special grace of God and with the support of every stakeholder, this crisis will be abated.
Colonel Mende, what's your thoughts to these killings in Zamfara State? Because the more you look at the issues, the more it seems more difficult for the government to try to address it. Because, number one, a lot of people expected that those 2 operations that are happening there, Operation Sharandaji and also Harbin Kunama, that they would have been effective as we did see the operations that happened in Benue State when Benue State was under siege. What is actually happening?
Thank you. I think it is the response by the stakeholders in the state. Now, when you talk of Benue State, when about 71 persons in Benue were killed, the governor came out shouting that his people are being killed. He shouted to everybody, and that forced the government to deploy her resources to ensure that the killings in Benue were stopped. But in the case of Zamfara State, the governor and other government officials in the state who have the responsibility to liaise with the federal government and the security agencies to ensure the killing was stopped at the earliest, they kept quiet. They kept quiet. There was no publicity to the killings, and the killings were taking place every day in dozens and in hundreds. And that is why, you see, the killing continued unabated, because the people who are responsible to stop the killing, they were nonchalant, to the extent that the governor of the state was saying that he will resign as the chief security officer of the state, but he will continue as the chief executive officer of the state. I mean, it doesn't make sense. The 2 go together. So I'm calling on the state government to be more proactive, to be more active in the fight against this banditry. to call on the federal government and collaborate with every stakeholder to make sure that the lives and properties of the citizens of the Zamfara state are secured. They can be secured, these killings can be stopped, but the willpower has to be there. The commitment has to be there. It's not enough to say the federal government has deployed her security resources and then at the lower level, we don't have a commensurate dedication to it.
Mr. Mande, a lot of people will tend to disagree with you to an extent, while some will still agree with you when you talked about the governor, given those comments that he gave, resigning himself from being the chief security officer of the state, but instead would want to be the executive man on seat in Zamfara state. But would you blame the governor, though? Because he doesn't have command over the apparatus of the police in the state.
No. You see, the police are also answerable to the governor. Every security agency deployed to the state is answerable to the governor, is liaising with the governor. They sit down together and strategize and review security situation when it becomes necessary. And when it is out of hand for them to control, they make report to the federal government. And because the federal government controls all the security agencies, yes, they deploy some to the state to support and assist the state government to make sure security is achieved. So I still stand my position.
Mr. Akonji?
Go ahead.
Okay, let me get the thoughts of Mr. Akonji, because this is neither going here nor there. When you look at the capacities of the governor of the state in terms of being the chief security officer, is it wrong for Mr. Yari to have said, okay, I resign myself from being the chief security officer because I cannot control the police? Those are his arguments.
I think in the affirmative, I think it's wrong because as the leader and the governor of the state, he's the chief security officer, and he knows what he signed for as the governor. You can't come in and say you're not going to be the chief security officer, but rather be an administrative governor. That's not correct. And like the colonel was just saying rightly, you see, we tend to put so much pressure on the federal government, not knowing that we have three arms of government, and they all have the role they play, the three stratas of government, the presidential, the state government, and then local government. So it's so funny that when it comes to resource sharing, the governors are always there to be chief security officers, to use security votes and whatnot. But when it comes to the real act of governance itself, you bring fickle excuses. I mean, the governor should show leadership. That's all we're asking for. The federal government has put what they can do. But also, what was the governor doing? When this attack happened, he wasn't around for 4 or 5 days. What kind of signal are you sending to your people? So as a leader, you're already surrounding your job.
Let me come in here. What the governor did was to insisted that Zamfara state must be declared a state of emergency. Isn't that a step in the right direction when you look at the governor as playing the role of the chief security officer of a state?
It is. It is a step in the right direction. Very, very, very good one. And also, there's something he has been saying, which I think they have to key into. Him and the Minister of Defense said that. They've been able to understand that people in Zamfara are conniving with the bandits with information. So you have people that are supposed to protect their own people, selling information to the bandits, and they come and kidnap them or for ransom or whatever it is within themselves and they move. So I think beyond declaring state of emergency, there has to be a proper collaboration with the stakeholders. The traditional institutions, they have a role to play because they have to bring in their wards in. The governor himself has a role to play. And if he feels he wants a state of emergency, well, that shows failure on his own part. Well, he moves in, somebody comes in and takes care of it. But all we want is security for Nigerians across the entire country. And this is what he signed for, and this is what we expect him to do. But if it seems like he finds that hard to be done, I hope the president, in his own wisdom, will see if declaring a state of emergency will be the right way to solve the crisis there.
How would you say the governor declaring that he has a situation on? How would you say that's a declaration of failure? I mean, if someone tells you, I'm having a problem here and I need help, is that a declaration of failure?
Well, it's not really, you're saying the fact, you're saying the honest truth to the people. But all we're saying here is that shouldn't be a reason for your own failure. You shouldn't, if you were absent from a crisis that happened to your state for 4 days, you didn't come around. Even if you feel you're not in charge of the security briefs of the entire state. Show leadership. It's not just by commanding the troops that actually you can show leadership for. And that's why I'm saying that the governor did not show leadership here. That's the honest truth.
What would you have expected, Colonel, what would you have expected the governor to do? I mean, he's come out to say the situation on ground. He doesn't have control over the security apparatus in the state. But your colleague in the studio says he should have shown leadership. What would you have expected the governor to do in that kind of situation?
I mean, like, the colonel gave a vivid example of what happened in Benue with the Benue State governor crying out and saying,
I was hoping the governor...
Even though he didn't also control...
I was hoping the colonel can respond to this question.
You see, we expected an early action by the governor. When this thing started, there are so many things that are underground that people really do not know. But I can understand why a governor will be sitting in a state and his people are being killed, kidnapped, they've been pauperized because their means of livelihood has been stopped. And he keeps quiet. And he goes about, you know, from one country to another. He hardly stays in the state. Even when he's in the state, he hardly stays in the state capital. How do you work? How do you discharge your responsibilities, your constitutional responsibilities, when you don't stay in the state capital, you don't stay in the state? You are always moving about. How much committed are you to the services you are supposed to ensure that is available in the state, especially security? So that is one of the problems. We must say the fact as it is.
Yes, even in saying the facts as it is, as you put it, one other fact that you cannot ignore is that in some other states where this kind of scenarios play out, you've seen more deployment of policemen to try to kill all those crises. But what's the underlying